welcome to The Analyst by Vajiram and Ravi, where we go beyond the headlines to build the concepts, context, and clarity that UPSC demands. It's July 9, 2026, and today's edition brings two fascinating themes for your main 2026 preparation. We begin with how spawned cities can save a flooding India, exploring how nature-based urban planning can reduce flood risks, improve water management, and build climate-resilient cities. Next, we ask an important question: when will the age of quantum computing truly begin in India? We examine the science behind quantum technologies, their strategic significance, and how they could transform everything from cybersecurity to healthcare and national security. Finally, to strengthen your answer writing, we will also bring you a dedicated mains value addition section featuring key reports, data points, examples, and case studies. And as always, we will wrap up with focused prelim pointers for your 2027 prelims examination. So let's begin. Hey guys, welcome back. I hope all of you are doing well. I hope your preparation is going fine. So with this, let us start with the very first article of the day, which is focused on a very interesting story of how Indian cities right now are actually facing two issues. One, some cities are facing water crisis, which we discussed in the previous analyst. The same cities are also facing flooding incidents where the entire city is almost drowning. We see the same condition which is taking place here, that is in Delhi, in Gurgaon. We have seen how many people are stuck in traffic jam. In Mumbai, we will discuss as to what is the severe problem of flooding that has been seen there for several years. And that is how we will actually try to understand how this is not only an Indian problem, this is a global problem. That is why everyone in the entire world almost who want to solve this problem of urban flooding is going towards a quite global solution. That is a solution of sponge cities. And that is exactly why we have also seen Chennai is gradually adopting the same. So discussing under the broader concept and the topics of GS1 of urbanization issues and GS3 environment and disaster management, let us start this issue by firstly looking at the city of Mumbai. Now we know that the Mumbai is a city in India which never sleeps. It is actually known as the financial capital of our country. But look at the condition of Mumbai. In early June 2026, this year itself, the same city was actually reeling under water shortage. Almost after 1 week, when the monsoon had its late onset in Mumbai, we see the city is right now flooded. Water is entering the homes, the cars, and if you are in Mumbai, please let me know if you are all safe or not. Also, when we look at the overall data, Mumbai annually on an average receives 2,400 mm of rainfall. Now you know what? When we combine the overall rainfall that London, Paris and most of the northern European cities received over a couple of years, that is the amount of rainfall that Mumbai receives. While this is not a very bad thing, because the more amount of rainfall, it is good for our groundwater, because at the end of the day, the rainfall or the water actually seeps down to the groundwater table. So it should be good, but that is not the condition. Our Indian cities are very poorly designed. The water cannot escape and they get inundated in this way. There are various challenges, we are going to discuss that. But before that, the author has presented to us a very, very important mains value addition. He has read one book, that is Unruly Waters, written by Mr. Sunil Amrit. Now, Mr. Sunil Amrit is again highlighting the same point. He's telling that our Indian cities historically have constructed irrigation canals, ponds, reservoirs. So in this way, we want to try to engineer water, control water for our own anthropological needs, such as to run our farms, agriculture, factories, domestic supplies, where we also use drinking water. So we have always engineered water historically. That has not been an issue over a period of time. But when we can actually go back to our childhood and recollect that the same specific neighborhood areas in your own towns and cities which get flooded every single year, they are getting flooded even right now in 2026. Do you agree with me or not? Right? So this is exactly the argument that this book is presenting, that water crisis, when it comes to water stress, lack of availability of drinking water, that is one genuine problem. Over a period of time, we have engineered water. We have tried to solve real problems of drinking water and everything. But at the end of the day, we see that whenever we have excess amount of rainfall, the same neighborhood conditions are seen. The same areas get inundated. And this is exactly why we have to look at some data right now. We have seen that in the recent times there have been major rainfall events over the years. You have seen from Assam to Kashmir to Kerala to each and every part of the country which receives some handsome amount of rainfall. Each and every city they are seeing increasing amount of extreme weather events. Now we have also seen the most of the disasters which take place in the Himalayan foothills, from the Uttarakhand rainfalls and the landslides and the cloudburst events, the Kedarnath dangerous catastrophe which took place back in 2013. These are all events which are triggered by rainfall. And you know why? We are discussing this because this is leading to a lot of deaths over a period of time. Even right now in this year, right in this present monsoon season, the rainfall has been estimated that it will be below normal. But look at the below normal rainfall. It is flooding our Indian cities. So we have to discuss the problem right now. The first natural problem that comes to us right now in 2026 is climate change, right? We understand that how over a period of time our world is getting warmer. Now, according to a very important report and data given by Clausius-Clapeyron relation, we get to understand that due to global warming, we see that the global temperature is rising. Now, every 1 degree Celsius rise in global temperature will lead to more concentration of water vapor, that is 7%, in the atmosphere. And you know that whenever we have more water vapor in the atmosphere, they form clouds and they form precipitation, and finally we get rainfall. And this is the excess rainfall which is happening. And we see that rainfall events which are extreme in nature, that is increasing since 2013. So climate change is actually a very real phenomenon right now. We are also seeing how warmer Arabian Sea and Bay of Bengal is giving rise to more cyclones, because we know that for cyclones the best condition is more hotter waters, right? And also we have seen, most importantly, how the land use is being impacted. So we will be understanding this in the coming slides, but first understand one global trend, that this is not only happening in India. According to IPCC AR6 Assessment Report 6 2021, these extreme rainfall events have intensified since 1950s. And the global surface temperature has risen by more than 1 degree Celsius. So definitely we are getting more water vapor in the atmosphere. Now these are all arguments that you are going to write whenever we are discussing why India is receiving more rainfall. Now let us look at more arguments right now. You see right now, in the last 10 years, Delhi, Mumbai, even Srinagar, Chandigarh, Bangalore, Hyderabad, all the major cities which are actually having more than 1 million population, which are also known as million plus cities, all of them are getting flooded. Now, we cannot only blame climate change right now. We also have anthropological reasons, which are actually related to the land use change that we discussed previously. Now, guys, increasingly we see in urban areas, there is more new buildings which are coming up, shopping malls coming up, more new office buildings are coming up, commercial spaces coming up. We have seen how in major cities we are also coming up with major semiconductor chip manufacturing companies, AI data centers. So that is why we are taking away a lot of land, we are purchasing land, and that is where we are also sometimes taking away wetlands. We are inundating the natural drainage channels. Also, we have seen how the excess amount of drainage water system in the country is totally blocked using plastics, using urban waste, right? And all those things. We have also seen how various cities are very poorly designed in the country. We are constructing roads, we are constructing pavements, but we are not leaving any gaps so that the water could actually, the excess rainwater which is being inundated in the entire city, they could actually go and seep down to the groundwater table, because our cities are totally impervious. Now, impervious surfaces means that the water cannot go down to the groundwater table, and that is why you see that the cities are totally inundated. Also, at the end of the day, we have to blame the bureaucracy. Bureaucracy has seen for the last 10 years that the cities are being flooded. In fact, Chennai, Bangalore, Mumbai sometimes see multiple flooding incidents in one city. So you actually understand, as bureaucrats, they get the data, they get the news, but at the end of the day, where is the real action on ground? Now looking at the human failure side, now let us look at how these human failures are exacerbating the climate change. For example, we see that the urban heat island effect is a real thing, because you know that we are living in concrete jungles in the Indian cities. You know, that is how over the days we see how the cities get heated up, and during the nights the cities remain warm because the heat is released from the concrete, and this is leading to more and more warming, and you know, more warming leads to more water vapor concentration. Also, we see that the sea level rise is a major concern, especially in Mumbai. You know, due to global warming, more glaciers are melting, the sea levels are rising, and that is where all these things are causing this level of flooding in the million plus cities. So what is the solution to all those effects of urban flooding? There is one very innovative solution which is given and presented by the author. Now this is not a new solution, it has been here for many years, but this has not been implemented in all of India with a mission intent. So this is where, you know, the city concept has to be developed over a period of time, and we have to move towards sponge city. Now sponge city program was actually practically implemented successfully in China, since they took up this as a national program in 2015 after being inspired by Kongjian Yu, who is a Chinese architect, who proposed that we have to visualize cities not as cities isolated. We have to think of cities as one section of the overall ecosystem. So imagine that, for example, this is a city, right? Now definitely there will be a lot of buildings, public transportation, etc. Now in the cities, definitely, you know, you will find some ponds, you will be having a river nearby, maybe a lot of trees and forests nearby also. So why not integrate all of them when we talk about urban planning and controlling flood? Imagine this very simple concept. Whenever we have excess rainfall events, we understand this rainfall water comes to the ground and gets collected. If this rainfall water cannot enter the ground or the soil, right, it will be stuck over the ground. It will be leading to flooding. So instead of that, what we can do, we can actually try to re-engineer the ground in such a way that we have a lot of spaces, porous spaces on the ground itself, so that the excess water can easily enter the groundwater table. So this is where the concept of green roof comes in. Green roofs are engineered in such a way that it will be collecting water, and it will be collecting water like rainwater harvesting, and there will be a channel which will be directly fed under the ground. Now come to rain gardens. Rain gardens are normal gardens, but it is filled with many water bodies, small ponds, so that the excess rainwater can actually go there and enter the groundwater in this way. So this is where we see that the entire sponge city concept is a three-layered concept. So firstly, we have the urban areas where we have the buildings, offices and everything, right? So there we should be having green buildings. So green buildings plus rainwater harvesting will be collecting the water, and we can try to supply the same under the ground. Next layer of system, when we have more amount of moderate rainfall, right? So definitely these buildings or green buildings will not be able to absorb that amount of water. So that is where we have to have a backup plan. Backup plan is having more rain gardens, more underwater and underground tanks. So this will be absorbing the excess rainfall. And even after that, we have more rainfall, intensive rainfall due to climate change. There is a solution for that also. That is where we have to have a macro system, a broader system, where we have to have wetland park. In a park or in a very wide area, we have to demarcate that area. And in that area, we have to have a big amount of wetlands. So this is actually the sponge blue-green infrastructure that we are talking about in a stage-wise manner. In your mains answers, you should be presenting this diagram, and definitely will be getting that extra marks. Now, we have to also understand that this is not only being implemented in China. If you look at the slide here, South Korea, Singapore, Brazil, Netherlands, which has a very good amount of blue-green infrastructure, Denmark, which has actually devised a cloud burst management system also. When we talk about Medellin, Colombia, which is infamously known for the drug cartels there, they have also green corridors. Rwanda, South Korea, everywhere in the world we see almost which is facing this issue of urban flooding, they are coming up with this sponge city. So that is why India also has not been silent. India actually quietly is carrying out its own experiment in Chennai. And I know the entire India should be learning from South Indian experiments and models, starting from ISRO to quantum computers, which we'll also see in the next slide and the next topic. And finally, the sponge city concept. South India gives us a lot of examples. Firstly, we see Chennai recently got 25 new sponge parks for 5 crore. Just imagine, for 5 crores, we can transform the city. Despite Chennai doing this experiment, there are so many critics who are telling that actually this sponge city model cannot work alone. So this is exactly why we have to understand from a very important WEF report. It is telling that the natural water absorption method, for example, this park, this is a wetland park in Chennai, which has been remodeled as a sponge city. So you understand that these are natural systems. In this entire sponge city here, in this sponge park here, we find that these trees are actually local trees, right? And this is a local wetland. So, this is a nature-based local solution. So definitely these local solutions are actually 50% more affordable because local trees and local expertise and this kind of things are actually available at cheaper cost. So apart from that, we also have to improve our reservoirs, those water management systems, storm water systems, drainage systems which are very old in the country. So definitely implementing sponge parks and cities are not enough. We have to go beyond that and improve the drainage system, because as of 2020 to 2025, the overall cost of this flooding incidents in the country has amounted to more than $15 billion, which is a huge amount. So this is exactly why we have to take some concrete solutions right now. Firstly, what is the way forward? We have to modernize the aging drainage system, which is existing in almost all parts of the country. Most of the cities you go to, you will see that the drains are extremely old, right? They do not have proper infrastructure. The water do not actually go out of the city. They remain inside the city only. So that is where we have to channelize the drainage systems, which are very old and ancient, to the wetlands initially. Then we have to try to have more green buildings. We have to have more green parks and rain gardens. The next solution is a very good one. The author is proposing that we can have a national and a state level urban disaster management authority, because most of the disasters right now, not only flooding, when we come to the other disasters also, we have seen that most of the cities are also being impacted. So let us have a urban disaster authority, which can also be coordinated by the central government, where the funds can be given by the center to the states here. What is their role? Their role is to go away from the traditional system which is being followed in India right now. What happens right now? The state governments instruct the district officials. The district officials try to coordinate with the local municipal staff. And most of the municipal staff, they are actually highly inactive. They are not accountable to the overall urban flood management compensation rules, or what would be the penalty if such urban infrastructure is not developed properly. So all these rules and standards needs to be standardized right now. And it has to be followed the spirit of this amendment bill of 2024. Now, the author is also proposing another aspect, which is having a digital layer. Let us link all those cities which are facing flooding incidents on a portal, which will be having their own SUJAL ID. So each and every municipal authority and the various departments responsible for urban flooding, they must be coordinating on a unified national portal, so that monitoring can be possible, data can be collected, and that is where national action can be taken place. Next, the same urban authorities, they must come up with proper zoning. Now, this zoning will be responsible for delineating those areas which are highly susceptible to flooding. Now, those flooding areas will be zoned off and proper action should be taken place to reduce the stress over those regions and try to convert them into permeable pavements, permeable ground surfaces, so that the excess water actually can enter the ground. And the entire process does not take more than 1 year. And because we have to understand there are so many municipal areas in the country, if all of them can take an action right now, try to regulate the land use, excess amount of development, and try to have this spirit of spawn city, which is also not that costly, they can actually do that. Because learning from the global best practices, we have seen even how countries such as Colombia have tried to implement the same. So let us actually implement all these things in the answer that is actually recommended for all of you to write for this question, right? You can let me know the answer in the comments below. And now we'll moving on to the next one, where the main story is when will quantum computing age begin? Because according to various experts, we are living in the age of AI. And you know what is the next big thing? They are the quantum computers. As of now, we are at a very, very early stage. That is why there is a lot of noise or a lot of defects and issues and errors in quantum computers. And that is where we will actually understand what our country is doing in this aspect compared to other countries such as China, and why we will understand gradually the country which will become more developed according to quantum computing advancements. That country will be controlling the future of this technology. So let us understand and start with the basics. Basics of classical computing. By classical computing, we mean the binary system, right? So, you know, at one time, your smartphones on which you are watching me and the laptops and the PCs that you are using, at one time, the computers can actually understand only in one or two. This is a binary system we have learned from our school days, right? Quantum computers go way, way behind. You know, you can do one experiment right now. Take a coin on your table and just spin the coin. You will understand that when you look at the spinning coin, you will not be able to actually tell whether you are seeing head or tails, because if it is in a spinning condition, the coin will show you both head and tails at the same time. This is why, you know, makes quantum computers so powerful. Just imagine one thing. In classical computing, we can do either 1 or 0. This is where the main aspect of semiconductor chips also come in. So the better CPU, the better GPU, the better RAM that you have, so definitely the more powerful computer calculations can be done even faster. But when we talk about quantum computing, remember that coin, you are seeing head and tails both at once. That means that quantum computers can operate with zeros and ones at the same time. So at one single point of time, we are getting both 0 and 1. That means actually in principle, it is way, way faster than a normal computer. And you know, in quantum computing language, this is known as a qubit. So we are talking about quantum science, which is the science of the subatomic particles, which are smaller even than your electrons of an atom. So we are dealing with that technology. And that is why we are at a very early stage right now. So when we have discussed this quantum technology of where this coin is showing me both head and tails at the same time, or in actual quantum computers which take zeros and one at the same time and do all this calculation, this principle is known as quantum superposition. It means that both 1 and 0 are existing at one point of time. You cannot distinguish that. And that is why if you take some amount of qubits, say 50 qubits, it will be way powerful than any supercomputer which is actually running on classical computing, according to various experts. Now, you know, there is another principle in this quantum technology that is known as entanglement. Quantum entanglement is very interesting, and that is exactly why it is very, very useful for security purposes. So imagine that there is one qubit here and another qubit which is there in the other side of the Milky Way galaxy. Now, quantum science tells you that if you change some aspects in this qubit in this Earth, the same change will be reflected in that qubit which is away from our galaxy. That means that both of the qubits are interlinked with themselves. So if you change one thing in one, the same change will be reflected in the other. So that is a beauty. That is a beauty of quantum science and quantum entanglement. And that is why with this powerful technology, we have applications in various fields, from medical to security, cryptography, where we can also make encryption models on your WhatsApp chats even much more stronger. Logistic optimization for various transportation services and overall supply chain management can be automated with greater ease using qubits. And climate change modeling, predictions, artificial intelligence, and making it much more better can all be possible with quantum technology. And that is why if you see in the entire world right now, most of the countries, say from Europe, in North America, Canada and US, we have also seen in Japan and China how these countries are actually going and investing a lot of money in this technology. In fact, IBM recently unveiled the world's largest quantum computer at 433 qubits. And this is a computer, if you can see here. So this means that the world is investing a lot of money. But still, various scientists are telling that we are not at that moment because there are so many issues. The issue is actually known as decoherence. Decoherence actually happens because, we are dealing with subatomic particles in quantum technology, extremely small particles. And that is why there can be high chances of errors. Because for quantum computers, for example, like this, we have to store these computers and maintain these computers at minus 273 degrees Celsius, which is at near zero levels. That means that we need cryostats, which are specialized refrigerators, which keep these computers very, very cool. And for that, we need a lot of energy. For that, we need a lot of money. So there are cost concerns here too. Right? On the other hand, we also get something that we know as noisy intermediate scale quantum. This means that in this quantum computer, for example, if it is exposed to any external electromagnetic wave or anything other than that, the entire computer can give errors. It can break down. So, we have to maintain it very carefully, very safely, right? And instead here, that is why, many companies such as Google are coming up with improved version of quantum computing chips, such as 2024 Willow chip from Google. But still that is not actually able to solve the various issues, and that is why we have to maybe wait for some decades, maybe 10 years, 20 years for actual computing science to be developed properly in the quantum technology aspect. But that is where India is also not waiting for that 10 to 20 years for the science to be developed first, because we have started from now only. Because this is where the story is becoming more interesting because of us. As of now, what we have done? We have spent 6,000 crores almost, where we are thinking about having quantum safe ecosystem framework. So this means that we need to have a national roadmap for securing India's digital infrastructure against quantum threats. Now you will ask me, what is a quantum threat? Quantum technology is extremely powerful because we have understand that qubit is actually way, way powerful than our normal binary system of our normal computers. So, if the government is developing it, definitely the private companies also develop it. But at the end of the day, various hackers can also use this quantum technology, right, in the future. And that is where they can come up with more serious hacks on our critical infrastructure such as railway stations, airports, hospitals. So from now only India is getting ready for having a roadmap. Also, if you look at our defense infrastructure, DRDO has already been developing this security installation. And also we are having something that we know as quantum key distribution. Remember that entanglement thing that we have talked about, that how one qubit somewhere will be also affecting another qubit other place. So we are also having a better secure military technology communication aspect here. Defense technologies are actually quite private in nature, and that is why we have to come up with better security protocols to protect them. So this is where quantum technology can actually improve the security there. Also, we should be also understanding what would be the implication for post-quantum world, right? And in a world where the various encryption models on WhatsApp, on your social media platform, on various other military websites. So all these are encrypted, where the future hackers can easily try to penetrate them. So what would be the scenario in that post-quantum cryptography, right? And various other C-dot innovations such as developing cutting-edge solution, including quantum key distribution, which I just talked about, right? Post-quantum cryptography, secure video calls over quantum technology. So this is where we are actually having 4 thematic hubs, also asked in 2026 prelims, where we have the hubs in IIT Delhi. We have also in IIC Bangalore, IIT Bombay, and IIT Madras. So all these are affiliated institutes, but we have these 4 thematic hubs. Apart from that, we also have 4 pillars of this mission. For example, quantum computing pillar, in which we have a target of reaching 1000 qubits in 8 years. So we have a good amount of target in the coming years. The next pillar is quantum communication, in which we are trying to develop the quantum key distribution, in which we are using the quantum entanglement concept here to have extended range of information delivery from 1000 to 2000 kilometers. This means that one qubit can be located in the DRDO headquarters, another can be located straight away 2000 kilometers away from the headquarters. And this is where, using this technology, the military establishments in the country will be able to do secure communication. On the other hand, the third pillar is about quantum sensing and metrology, where we were actually coming up with ultra sensitive sensors, including atomic clocks, also materials and devices in the form of chips, refrigerators and lasers, which are all important in our quantum computing mission. So having looked at most of the important details, which is very important for your mains, now let us understand what is our actual performance, whether we are actually able to implement the mission as of now, because the mission has already started. So if you can understand right now, we have already had a breakthrough. There is an Indian startup known as the Q New Labs, which already achieved the quantum key distribution, that technology, of 1000 kilometers. That means we already have achieved quantum entanglement up to the range of 1000 kilometers. The next target is 2000 kilometers. And you know, we have done only in less than 2 years, because our actual goal was 8 years, but we did that in less than 2 years. And you know, with a fraction of money, because we have invested how much? $0.73 billion. Look at China's investment and UK and US's investment. So we have already done way lot using way less money. Now let us go to Andhra Pradesh, in the Quantum Valley there. Now, you see that this is a mega center which is under the initiative of the Andhra Pradesh state government, where Andhra Pradesh state government is trying to devise their own quantum computers, where in this park we have the presence of government, private sector and also the universities. Now, quantum chips in this is supplied by the IISc and TIFR. Cryogenic cables which keep the quantum computer cool is supplied by the Dimira Technology, which is an IIT Bombay startup. Precision power supply is coming from another startup. Control electronics is where DRDO is participating. So we understand that in this model, we are having multiple stakeholders for one single mission. That is pioneering quantum computers in the country. We have other initiatives also. For example, firstly, we have Indian Army's Quantum Lab, which is situated at the Military College of Telecommunication Engineering at Madhya Pradesh. Then we have a research-based initiative on quantum computing, which is known as Quest. We also have the QSIM Toolkit, which is again a research-oriented initiative, because the research ecosystem in the country is quite poor, and this is where we are not leaving any block behind in this quantum technology aspect. Next, we have a very important institution which is pioneering quantum computer in India, that is known as CDOT, or Center for Development of Telematics. This is where you recollect that under the National Quantum Mission, in the last point we discussed about the CDOT innovation, which is developing the quantum key distribution, post-quantum cryptography and various other features, right? Next, we also have the iHub Quantum Technology Foundation, which is an initiative of the Department of Science and Technology plus IISER Pune, where we are talking about 7 to 8 researchers collaborating with the government in this arena, where they also get government funding. Now, apart from that, based on the hardware that is used in various quantum computers, recently another quantum startup, that is the QPI AI Indus, they had first fully stacked 25 qubit quantum computers in the country. Also, we have our own Kaveri class semiconductors and chips. Next, IISc 6 qubit photonic system, which relies on the photons, right? And a 20 qubit ion trap computers. We do not need to go into too much of details of the technicalities here, otherwise it will take 2 hours for me to explain. So in this aspect, you just have to understand the government of India is doing a way more to promote the quantum technology. But that is not enough. we have to do even more. So the way forward in this respect would be to firstly have some regulation and standards. Firstly, we have to come up with a dedicated quantum regulatory body. As of now, you know what? We do not even have an AI regulatory body. So firstly, before we get the ills of some technology, firstly let us have a regulatory body to set the rules. Next, when that is done, we need to focus on the infrastructure. Look at the state of Andhra Pradesh. It is way ahead than any other states, right? And under National Quantum Computing Mission, various funds and various other aspects are given to various other states, right? But at the end of the day, we have to keep in mind that regional infrastructure is more important. We have to spread the same model of Andhra Pradesh to the other states. Also, is another data. According to that, we have 2.5 lakh of quantum skilled expert deficit in the country by 2030, because over the years quantum computing demand is only going to increase and similar skilled labor is also going to increase. So that is where we have to learn from Andhra Pradesh model. This is where this model can actually try to set up more technology parks, quantum parks in the states. Also, we have limited research and development funds, due to which we need more amount of intellectual property rights to be granted to the startups so that they can actually have much more innovation and investment, and they can try to protect their inventions, for which they will also get money, right? And finally, whenever we talk about global cooperation, we have to cooperate with Microsoft, Google, so that we can actually transfer their technology in our country with some agreements and some deals. And at the end of the day, when we talk about cost, India is already operating at a very low cost model. And this is what, ISRO also followed way back, decades back. And at that time, many laughed at ISRO. But look at ISRO right now. So why not? We will also have an ISRO moment in the quantum technology arena. So this is where practice this question. Now let us move on to the next value additions. So guys, let us start the mains value addition section, where we generally have various newspaper articles from where we only select some extracted data points, committee recommendations, reports, which you can quote in your upcoming mains exam. So firstly, come back to this article here. Over 42% rise in female enrollment in higher education has been seen in India since 2014. So this is according to the All India Survey of Higher Education. So if you see here, for 7 straight years, consistent 7 years, we see that the gender parity index has been reaching above 1. In fact, it is 1.08 in 2023-2024. What it means? It means that if one boy is being enrolled at the higher secondary level, so we have 1.08 girls also getting enrolled. So this means that actually gender gap is being narrowing at the higher secondary level, right? Now if you look at the total enrollment has grown from 2014 level at 31.5% if you talk about right now. But this data is not important. The main important data is the female enrollment. It has increased by 42.2%. Very important for your mains. Also, the women who are enrolling in science, technology and various other important management fields, so there it is at 11.4%. Now, look at the other aspects. When we talk about the ST population, they are up at 75.7% enrollment, OBCs at 60, SCs at 51.4%. So that means most of the vulnerable sections of the population are also getting better higher education in the upcoming years since 2014. Now for GS1 answers, you can quote this data. Now for GS2 answers, when we have the topic of education, you can also quote this important data that in the National Education Policy 2020, we had a target of gross enrollment ratio of 50% by 2035. But already we have achieved a GER of 30 in 2023-24. So this is a good record. And finally, when we talk about the participation of Indians and women in science and technology, we see that 44% out of 1.02 crore STEM graduates are actually women. So this is actually quite good. Now coming to the next article, where we have the World Economic Outlook report. This is published by the IMF. IMF annually gives this forecast. So this is a forecast of how the global world will be growing in terms of GDP. So if you see, IMF has lowered the global growth forecast to 3% only, but India will grow at 6.4%. So this means that most of the global countries are actually slowing down due to tariffs, due to trade diversion, due to Strait of Hormuz issues and various other crises which are going on, right? But when we talk about some countries who are actually doing well, they are Vietnam and South Korea. These are actually doing very well in technology, especially in chip manufacturing. The biggest sufferers and losers are actually Middle Eastern oil producers for obvious reasons, and the Western countries also. Now when we talk about India, India is projected to grow at 6.4%. You have to quote this in your mains answers, which is upcoming soon, because examiners always appreciate fresh data. So why we are going to grow at this fast rate? Because of strong private consumption. This means that Indians are actually spending more in the markets, and that is boosting the economy. And also our service sector is doing quite well despite the layoffs and the AI issues. And instead, the report actually has told that AI is actually going to positively contribute to GDP. So this is all for this. Now let us move on to the last one, where we have the Hindu editorial page data point, where the main theme is that the states contribute disproportionately more to the welfare schemes. So there are so many government welfare schemes where the central government and the state government both should be spending money. Now, why we are discussing this? Because in your GS2, we have a topic known as welfare scheme for the vulnerable sections of the population and the issues arising out of them. One of the issues is the issue of funding. So as revenue accrue to the union, fiscally constrained states or states which have less money are actually having a greater burden of spending on those government schemes. Just look at the level where the union government is spending on social justice, tribal and minority affairs, and how much the state is spending. On the school education front, state government are spending way more. Public health also. On the various government schemes such as Pradhan Mantri Matru Vandana Yojana, the ICDS, the public distribution system, here the central government is spending more. Also the Manrega aspect, central government is spending more. So this is where you have to understand the pattern. You never know, this also can be asked in the prelims exam. Also, when we talk about the expenditure on the social services in real terms by the center and the states, we say that the state expenses for these services are actually way more. And finally, when you also see the various schemes, and when we talk about the total percentage, if you see, the state government spend more from their budget rather than the union budget. If you see, in all respect, the state government actually spend more. So this is where the state governments sometimes fall short of funds, and this is where you can actually present this data to highlight this. So right now we will be moving on to the prelims pointers, where we will start with a Delhi High Court judgment. The judgment is based on the right to be forgotten, which is perhaps one of the most important evolving fundamental rights, which is granted generally under the right to privacy. Let us understand why with a real example. So what happened, in 2014, there is a Spanish citizen who took a loan for his house. So for some maybe economic reasons, he was not able to pay back the loan. And whenever you also open a newspaper, sometimes you see there is one page filled with some bank announcements that if this X person is not able to pay this Y amount for his home loan taken on this XYZ dates, we will be taking the possession of his house, or we will be auctioning the house, right? So what happened in this case, in his case, what happened? Despite some financial issues, he was able to pay back the loan. Still after that, one day he noticed on Google that the old newspaper advertisement notice was still there regarding the auction of his repossessed house, even when he actually settled the debt. So definitely it is against his dignity, right? Because when we talk about India, right, we have Article 21, which is giving us the right to life and personal liberty. In various Supreme Court judgments, Supreme Court has explicitly told that right to life and personal liberty also includes right to live with dignity, right to privacy, personal autonomy, also reputation. So you tell me in the comments, in this case, aren't all these rights being impacted? When he sees an old newspaper advertisement regarding his previously loaned house which he actually repaid, so definitely his dignity will be affected. What about some relatives or friends who will be seeing that newspaper advertisement? Definitely his reputation will go down in the society. So way back in 2014, this was the case, perhaps one of the very first cases under this right to be forgotten framework. And in India also this was in debate for a long period of time. So definitely it means that right to be forgotten is a right that all of us should be having. Because one's personal information right now is available everywhere, right? For example, your photos, your posts, your comments, your replies, 5 years, 10 years, 100 years from before on the internet is still there. And if there is some adverse comment or adverse, say, any document there, any photos there, so definitely it will be harming your reputation going down the lane. So definitely you should be having the provision to remove them from any publicly available sources such as search engines or online websites, online directories, etc. So this is exactly what the Delhi High Court recognized in India, that right to be forgotten is actually a kind of a fundamental right. And that is why a framework has been given. Framework means that there is something, a term known as de-indexation. The de-indexation means, for example, talk about the guy from Spain. So he went to Google and saw that old newspaper advertisement, right? So right now, what is available for us right now, if you want to remove any of your old post or photo or anything related to you. Say for example, a Supreme Court judgment. Say for example, there is Mohan, who was one day maybe was very angry with some of his neighbors due to some local issues, and they were quarreling with the neighbors between themselves. And suddenly one of the neighbors, they did what? Our neighbors are our best friend. So he went to the police station to file a police case, a criminal case against Mohan. Now what will happen? The police will obviously do the investigation will go to the court will have the hearings, a judgment will be passed, and Indian Qanun, Live Law, these are all the websites on which you can actually access most of the court judgments also. Right? So for example, Mohan after 2 years have been found innocent by the court and told that okay, you can be free right now. This was a neighborly fight, it is all fine right now. And maybe the neighbor was also penalized for that fight because he was innocent. So what Mohan will feel right now that okay, everything is fine, there is no issue, the court has told me I'm innocent. Right now, when Mohan will go to any job interview, for example, will be preparing for UPSC and has cleared UPSC, cleared prelims, cleared mains, cleared interview. Finally, we know after interview, there is something that is known as police verification. Maybe the police verification or the police officers of that same police station will have some bias. They will give some adverse comments. Or for example, if Mohan is applying to a private job, right? So their condition is even worse. The boss or the HR manager will look at the Google results that Mohan was involved in a criminal case. Straight away, Mohan's application will be denied. This is the harm that many people are suffering right now due to such issues. And that is why the Delhi High Court has specifically told that all of us has the fundamental right as of now to approach appropriate authorities to remove all those things which are associated in our names from the online media or online platforms if we feel so. So for example, what we have a process right now in India is that to request a removal, you have to approach Google. Google will give you a form where you have to identify your country of residence. You have to give some of your personal information such as email ID, contact. Then you have to give a list of the URLs, the websites. You have to yourself give the list to Google that you want to remove, along with a short description, right? And a legal identification also. And if your request is approved, right, that particular result or your name or various other things will not be actually be mentioned. But please note that your content won't be erased. Content will still be there on the website. But at least it won't be seen to you. Imagine that you are in a library, right? And you want to actually borrow a book, but someone else has borrowed that book, right? So in the library's record, the book is there in the library, but it is not there as of now. So it is almost like that, right? So de-indexation is a process where your details will be hidden. It won't be deleted. So in some cases where the accused has been acquitted, criminal proceedings were squashed or totally done away with, the victims were actually discharged, dispute was settled, matter was purely private. In such cases, anyone can go to Google or appropriate authorities and exercise their right to be forgotten. This is the framework right now. But there are exceptions also. Exceptions will be like some people who are having convictions for offenses against women or children. They won't be given this right to be forgotten. Corruption and breach of public trust by public officials, no right to be forgotten. Convicted public servants, elected representatives, persons actually who have abused public trust and corruption and all those aspects, they do not have the right to be forgotten. So in India as of now, we do not have any law, any responsibility of the government of India to exercise this right. Only the court judgment is there. When we talk about Europe, they have this Article 70 of their general data protection rights. So they have their rights, but we also should be having the same framework in our country. So this was all. We'll now move on to the next. So the government of India is coming up with a plan to redevelop the Indira Point. Indira Point, you know, is the southernmost point of the entire country. Not only the mainland, but actually this is located in the southernmost part of the Great Nicobar Island, just beside the Galathea National Park, right, and the old Shastri Nagaram beach. So you see, at the furthest end, there is this beautiful lighthouse that we are trying to redevelop. It was actually earlier known as Pygmalion Point, right? Later in 1985, it was actually named after our Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. So here, this is actually located at a very important marine trade route. See here, these are the Andaman Nicobar Islands here, and this is actually located very close to this important route which connects, for example, from Singapore to the Suez Canal to the rest of the Europe. And also, you know, the rest of this part of the world is also dependent heavily on this region. So definitely, if you are a sailor and you need some navigation near our India's southernmost point, this lighthouse is very important for maritime regulation. Also, it will be having a great synergy with the Great Nicobar Island project, which we also have discussed in the past. This is the project, right, where we will be having a transshipment port, which is a port where various big cargo will come in and the cargo will be disassembled and various smaller ships will be carrying the cargo to the various other parts of the country. So there is a port which will be coming up here, right, at the Galathea Bay here, if you can see, right. There will be an international airport, power plant and township, and this will be having a total of 92,000 crore. Now, some geography related questions for your Nicobar Islands and the Andaman Islands, a very important topic, because in 2026 prelims also they have asked this. So let me know what is the answer in the comments below. Right now, what we are trying to do, we are trying to redevelop the Indira Point lighthouse, because firstly, when this December 2004 tsunami and the earthquake took place, this was the scenario of our lighthouse. This was a magnitude 9.1 earthquake, which actually also led to land subsidence, right? Due to this immense earthquake, the land underneath actually gradually is starting to subside, almost sunk by 2.04 meter, also having a 3.86 degree tilt. So that means that lighthouse is not in a very good condition. So as of now, we are taking two measures. Firstly, we are taking safety measures. So we are trying to repair the lighthouse. We are trying to have marine breakwater, so that, for example, we will be constructing some wall kind of structures along with the coast, so that the water stays away from the lighthouse. Also, we will be having a powerhouse, inspection quarters and walls and roads. On the other hand, government, if it is trying to redevelop the area, it also wants to promote more tourism, especially after the Great Nicobar Island project. Firstly, we will have an international standard maritime museum, a commemorative historical memorial for all the historical legacy that this entire islands hold for us. Also, we will be having an eco-tourism zone. And finally, we also will be having a convention center, viewing tower, cafeterias for all of you to go and chill there, and eco cycle tracks. So this will be kind of a good development of the region. But there are also various experts which are complaining that we have something that is known as the Island Coastal Regulation Zone under 2019 notification. This tells that between the high tide and the low tide areas, right, there should be limited amount of development, because simply, for example, zones which are demarcated as CRZ1, these are those areas where we have a lot of rich mangrove cover, delicate coral reefs, sand dunes, and various rich biodiversity such as the leatherback turtle nesting grounds. So for example, if you are building walls, convention centers, etc. near the lighthouse itself, so what about the mangroves and the coral reefs and everything? Will they be destroyed? Next, the area which was designated for breakwater construction is also falling under CRZ4, which is the water itself. So there also there can be coral reefs and various other marine ecosystems which can be affected. So this is what the environmental safeguards that we have to keep in mind. But at the end of the day, let us discuss two perspectives. One perspective is where there can be better regional development in the area. Another perspective is where we have to also go with the environment to conserve the area too. So first perspective, that for example, when we are doing all this kind of repair work and economy related works, so definitely infrastructure will be better. So if we have a better lighthouse, functioning lighthouse, so it will be also good for logistics sector, right? The ships will be benefiting due to the lighthouse. Strategic presence also will be demonstrated by us, because having a lighthouse being repaired and also having a good tourism aspect there, this means that we are also having a better presence in the Indian Ocean region, right? Also, we have to understand that these areas, for example, these island areas of our countries are not that developed. That is why we need to have better amount of tourism development too, because the locals can earn some money with reference to tourism business. Now look at the other side. The other side is that there are various questions which are unanswered right now. Will construction disturb the fragile coastal habitats? Definitely yes. There are turtle nesting grounds, so definitely the government has to work around that. Could tourism increase ecological pressure? Definitely yes. Even in the mainland India, where there are eco-tourism hotspots, especially in the Western Ghats, we have seen how these hotel owners, these resort owners, they intentionally encroach into the forest to have more area for themselves. Also, we have seen instances how forest fires are triggered in this way. And here we are talking about the island ecosystem. Also, how will the coral reefs and the biodiversity will be protected, because definitely there will be impact. And finally, the development. Can it proceed without harming one of India's most sensitive island ecosystems? Because this is also where the Shompen tribes live. And the Shompen tribes are actually belonging to the particularly vulnerable tribal groups. These are the tribal groups which are actually untouched by mainland India's practices, customs, various other modern aspects of life. So what will be the impact on them? That is also something that we have to discuss. But this was all for this one. We will now move on to the next. So in the Indian Express today, we have a very interesting article based on the Astra missiles, which the Indonesian government has decided to procure from India. Now, guys, that these Astra missiles are something which we know as beyond visual range missiles. So firstly, understand what is beyond visual range. We have seen so many fighter jet movies, especially Tom Cruise movie, right, where he flies along the fighter jet. So you must have seen that a fighter pilot do not always have an unlimited vision. Firstly, because the world is curved, right? Also, there can be various clouds. Also, there can be various terrain such as mountains, buildings, due to which the planes, the enemy aircraft in front of that pilot cannot always be visible. So that is why, for example, if this fighter jet wants to shoot down the enemy jet, so how that person will be doing that? Because that jet is beyond visual range. That person cannot see and lock the missile target properly. So in these cases, we have complicated missile systems, advanced missile systems, right? So this is what we know as BVR, Beyond Visual Range Warfare. So here we do not only use fighter jets, we use radar systems, electronic sensors, data links, AWACS aircraft. You must have seen these kind of aircrafts. This is where we have the flat bottom top on the top of the aircraft, which is actually also acting as a radar, plus various other aspects of communication with the nearby fighter jets, so that if this aircraft is actually hovering nearby the fighter jets, so the entire visual range is automatically extended. So this is where the missiles are coming in. So for the beyond the visual range missiles to work, we need a perfect combination of all of these things to properly work, right? So this is where our Astra missile is actually coming into picture. So also when we talk about the fighter jets, now the fighter jets have the missiles underneath them, right? For example, see this area, this is where the missiles are there, right? So there are generally two types of air-to-air missiles. That means one fighter jet which is trying to strike another fighter jet in the air itself. So it has two ways. Firstly, within visual range, that is short range missiles, where the range is between 20 to 30 kilometers, where we have examples of Python, Ashram, R-73. But when we talk about the Astra missile, it is actually falling under the beyond visual range. Correct? So this means that this has actually a target of around 70 kilometers beyond the target of the aircraft itself. Correct? And this is where they use three kind of technologies. Firstly, inertial guidance technology. Inertial guidance means, for example, whenever the pilot, aircraft pilot or the fighter pilot will be launching the missile and the enemy fighter plane is outside the visual range. So firstly, the missile itself will be having their own GPS system, right? But sometimes in this entire visual range system, sometimes the GPS cannot work. So what it will do, it will try to calculate automatically its acceleration, its speed and the distance, estimated distance to the enemy aircraft. And in this way, it will go and strike it. Also, for example, whenever the missile is going to hit the enemy aircraft, if the enemy aircraft suddenly makes a turn, the missile also will be having a turn. This is known as mid-course update. And finally, terminal active radar homing means that these missiles also have a very special capability. Whenever the missile is not able to track the flight properly or is actually very close to the aircraft body, it will automatically explode, right? So this is actually where the missile will be closely following the aircraft and be exploding near it. So based on this, we have three Astra families. This is the most popular one, Astra Mark 1. This is where we use this to export to other countries, right? The range is 80 to 110 kilometers. Altitude, they can reach up to 20 kilometers. It is using a single pulse solid fuel motor, which is a normal motor that the missile is using, and it can be fitted onto this kind of aircrafts. Now, Astra Mark II has a greater range, greater altitude, and it has a dual pulse solid motor. Just have this difference, that the main difference between the Mark 1 and Mark 2 motors is that this dual motor can actually switch on a different motor for greater acceleration, for better speed. And finally, we have the Mark 3, which is also known as the Gandhiva. This is actually having a greater range of 350 kilometers and works on the solid fuel ducted ramjet. This ramjet means that it is a technology which breathes oxygen continuously. So it uses oxygen as the fuel, right? And this is actually one of the most advanced beyond visual missiles that we have, right? Now, this is very significant for us because firstly, we want to counter the PL-15 variant types of missile, which is Chinese origin, which was also used by Pakistan in the Operation Sindhu 2. Also, when we talk about the European Meteor and Russian R-77, we should not be depending on them. We can save money and we can actually realize the concept of Atmanirbhar Bharat. And at the end of the day, defense exports will be increasing. For example, there has been a 5,500 increase in percentage terms up to the tune of 38,424 crores of defense exports, where we are actually exporting helicopters, missiles, jets, etc. to various other countries. Right? Now, why Indonesia is buying it? Because firstly, we have to understand that Indonesia is very closely located to China in the South China Sea. So South China Sea is a very disputed region where China time and again creates various conflicts based on the 9-dash line. Right? And this is where Chinese believe that their territory extends way more into even Philippines, Malaysia and Indonesia too. So that is why the strategically located Natuna Islands is very important for Indonesia. To protect this, they are taking the missile from us. Also, we have some projects on their Sabang port. So our technology there is also very crucial for us too. And at the end of the day, Indian missiles are also cost effective but high on technology. So these were the various reasons here. Now let us move on to the final article of the day, where we will wrap up the discussion with the Prambanan temple and the basic facts regarding it. Because recently our Prime Minister visited Indonesia at Yogyakarta and offered prayers at this temple, which is the largest Hindu temple site in Indonesia, which was constructed during the Mataram kingdom, where King Sanjaya was one of the earliest kings. Also, when we talk about the Mataram kingdom, it was actually a Hindu-Buddhist state which ruled from the 8th to 11th centuries. Now, when we look at the reason as to why we have a lot of Hindu temples in the Southeast Asian region, it is where our Chola Empire has to be given credit. This is where we see that due to more spread of trade and commerce relations, many of us actually went there to settle down, and we started following our customs and religion there, and hence we also have the scenes from Mahabharata, if you can see here, on the temples of Prambanan. Right? Also, this is not the only temple there. We also have the Diang temple, which is there in Indonesia too, which is a set of temples where right now the Archaeological Survey of India will go there and try to have restoration aspects, because we want to have a shared civilization and heritage. This is why the temples will be taken care of. Now, when we look at the temple layout, we generally have a large central part which is dedicated to Lord Shiva and various other small temples dedicated to Lord Brahma and Lord Vishnu. Now, when we talk about the various other temples where our Archaeological Survey of India is also having the responsibility of restoring and maintaining, we firstly have the restoration work at Angkor Wat and Ta Prom. In the comments, you let me know in which country it is located in. Also, we have the conservation of the Mysore Hindu temple complex, and finally, the Ananda temple in Bagan. So this was all for today's Analyst, and this is why I thank you all for being a very patient audience. Please do attempt the quiz which is following up. Till we meet again, all the best and best of luck. Thank you.